I have the privilege of introducing our next panel and our facilitator, Paula Glover. Paula started as president of the Alliance to Save Energy earlier this year, and with more than 25 years of experience in the energy industry, Ms. Glover is the 7th president of the Alliance's 43-year history. Previously, Ms. Glover served as president and CEO of the American Association of Blacks in Energy. I cannot wait for you to hear from this remarkable panel, so I'm going to turn it over to you ladies now.
Thank you. And good morning. Good morning to all of you. It's good to see you guys. So I am joined by two fantastic women, Julie Brown and Barbara Quiñones. Julie, right here, serves as a secretary of the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation, where she leads the state's regulation of more than 1.4 million licenses across more than 30 fields of industry. Secretary Brown joined the department following 3 terms of service on the Florida Public Service Commission. Secretary Brown served as commission chairman from 2016 to 2018, and as chairman, she also established initiatives to build and strengthen links between the commission and its stakeholders with improvements in technology, communication, and quality of service. And I will tell you all, because I know Julie very well and we are friends, that we miss her at the commission, but she really represented Florida very well in that role. Next to Julie is a new friend, Ms. Barbara Quiñones. Barbara is the Director of Electric Utilities for the City of Homestead. She serves as the elected chair of the Florida Municipal Power Agency's Board of Directors, where she has been on the board since 2009. Previously, she worked for 26 years. You do not look like you could have worked anywhere 26 years, Ms. Barbara.
Thank you.
At Florida Power and Light in a variety of positions, including Senior Manager of Statewide Distribution Planning and Design and Senior Manager of Statewide Power Restoration and Power Quality. Please welcome both Julie and Barbara. So we're going to talk a little bit about rulemaking for innovation, resilience, and affordability in the energy and a little bit about the water sector. And I'm just going to share with you all a couple of things. First of all, if you think about the energy sector, there are actually 3 types of utility companies. And Barbara's going to tell you the differences, but there are investor-owned utilities, like a Florida Power and Light. There are municipal utilities, like the City of Homestead, and there are also rural electric cooperatives. And so each of them are regulated, but by different bodies and in different ways at the state and local level, in addition to federally. So at the federal level, investor-owned utilities, and most of them are regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They regulate transmission lines and other things. And then for water companies, they're going to be regulated primarily by the EPA, Clean Water Act, et cetera. So Barbara, I'm going to ask you the first question, which is, first of all, share a little bit about how you got into the role that you were in. Why don't you start with that so people have a sense of who you are.
All right. Thank you, Paula. It's an honor to be here today with this wonderful group of ladies as well. And I guess I got started in the path that I chose to take, and probably in the 8th grade. I took an electronics class, my best friend and I. We wanted to be in a class that was all boys, and so we signed up for electronics, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with the problem solving. I fell in love with understanding electricity and circuitry and fixing things that were broken. And that may be a female quality that I have, is trying to fix things that need to be repaired. And from there, I went on to study engineering at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. And after graduating from Georgia Tech, I started off at Florida Power and Light and worked through a variety of jobs, as Paula mentioned, and moved into supervision there, which I loved. And that was working with the field employees, the folks that you see going out and repairing the power lines. I worked with those gentlemen, and it was just very, very rewarding. Again, we were providing a service to the community, and we were fixing things when they were broken. At one point, I had the restoration team, the people that show up when your power's out. And so while everyone is not very happy when their power's out, they're all usually really happy when the power comes back on. And so it's just very, very rewarding field. And I left FPL when an opportunity opened up in Homestead. And I run the municipal electric organization there in Homestead. Homestead is a city just south of Miami. And I started participating in the overall organization for the Florida Municipal Power Agency, which is an organization that brings together 32 cities that have municipal power organizations throughout the state of Florida. And we partnered together for economies of scale for power generation and member services and engineering analysis. We serve about, I think it's 1.4 million customers in the state of Florida through the municipally owned electric utilities. And I guess it all started back in 8th grade. So that's my story.
8th grade, okay. Well, you know what, anything to be near the boys. I understand that. So, Julie, you are an attorney by trade. Talk to us about how you've ended up in really a career of public service.
Thank you. So yes, I went to law school. I'm a native Floridian. Went to law school and undergrad at University of Florida, go Gators, and bad football season this year, but very proud of our state. Started in the private sector. Really did not enjoy the private practice and somehow migrated to be a city attorney, which is how I got into public service after all. I was a city attorney in Tampa. Really did some great, I felt like it was rewarding work. Left because I wanted to run for city council against an incumbent city council member, so it was a little inappropriate to be there. So I went in-house with a big publicly traded company, drafting contracts, and which actually, it circled back because it led me to the PSC. Ran against him. I lost by 1,400 votes. Not that I'm still counting them. But it was a really enriching experience, actually, the city running for office. It was a family affair, really. I just had my first baby, and I had committed to running against him, the man that I ran against, and it was very hard. It was very challenging because a lot of actual women were saying, "How can you run when you have a baby?" So it was a very elucidating experience. I will never run again. I do like the appointments process much better. So I was in-house counsel, continued to do that, and folks, I was headed up to Tallahassee doing a lot of regulatory affairs work, and ran into an old high school college friend. He said, "Hey, there's 4 seats opening up on the Florida Public Service Commission." The Senate rejected 2 of the confirmation. They were supposed to confirm 2 commissioners, and then the governor failed to reappoint 2, so that's 4 seats, which is unheard of. There's only 5 in Florida. So that's really, it was a very monumental time. He said, "You should do that." I had no idea what that was. He said, "Do you like public service? Run for public service, I mean, you know, go through the process." So I missed it. I really missed it, being a part of something that was very rewarding. I applied for it, went through a nominating council process, did not make the cut the first time. The other 2 seats opened up a month later, went through that process, my name got forwarded to the governor, met with the governor at the time. I was not supposed to get it, and I somehow just serendipitously got it. There were 7 other much more qualified people, and I got it, and then I stayed on there through 3 other governors. They continued to get reappointed, got involved in national issues, as you know, Paula, because we've done a lot of panels together. Very passionate about energy, but this Governor DeSantis, gave me an opportunity in February, after over 10 years at the PSC, to lead a huge, huge agency. It's the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. We actually regulate this hotel. It is just an incredible opportunity to run something that impacts the lives of so many. So, but my heart is still in the energy sector. Yeah. I'm looking forward to a little bit more about that.
Great business.
It is.
So Barbara, talk about kind of Homestead as a municipal utility. So why don't you share with everybody kind of the difference between an investor-owned utility, which you worked for at Florida Power Light, and a municipal?
Okay, thank you. One of the biggest or the biggest differences, I guess I should say, one of the biggest differences between the two is that an investor-owned utility is regulated by the Florida Public Service Commission, and they are not allowed to make changes to their operation or their rates without the PSC reviewing and approving it. At a local level, for a municipal organization, a municipal electric utility is provided oversight by the city council or city commission, or in some cases a utility board. And those are locally elected officials who have the oversight for that organization. So one of the biggest differences is that the people who are making the decisions in a municipal utility are the elected officials. And they're, of course, much more accessible to the public. Not that the Public Service Commission is not accessible. They very much are. I've contacted them myself. But the elected officials have the ultimate say on setting the policy and even the rates and making all the rules. So that's probably the biggest difference. What we also like to say is that we're part of the community. The people who work in our organization, the majority of them live in that community. They're customers of the organization. And they have a vested interest and they have a pride in what they do, and they want to perform to the very best because it's their community. And we say that at Homestead Public Services Energy, you're not just a customer, you're our neighbor. And so it's a very, very different dynamic because of the sense of community that you get and the accessibility of the decision makers. And so I guess to me, those are the biggest differences, that we're part of the community and that the public, the community, the customers all have access to those decision makers immediately should they have any type of concern.
She may not be allowed to say this, but I can. The city, when a municipal is much more political than the public service and investor-owned utility.
I can't say that.
But it's true.
It's true, though.
And they don't have the technical expertise as public service commissions around the country.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk. No. So let's continue, Julie, and tell us about who actually is the customer from a commissioner's perspective. People might be surprised to hear that you have lots of customers. So why don't you share a little bit about who the customer is and the differences between those customers and how you think about them when you're in a role of decision making?
Everyone is the customer, whether it is the legislators who, of course, you know, as a public service commissioner, you have to go through a Senate confirmation process, and they are stakeholders. They are key stakeholders. They are the customer. The governor is the customer. The utilities are the customer. The customers are the customer. It is a all-encompassing position. As a public service commissioner, you have to go out in the field. You have to go through stakeholder events, different types of community events. You have to hold customer meetings to get input. So it really, I mean, it's a challenge, and you're never going to make everybody happy. That's the one thing of being in a position of a public officer. You're just not going to make everybody happy, and you just have to be okay with that and make the right decision.
I might suggest that if you don't make everybody happy, you're probably doing a pretty exceptional job.
Probably a student there. That's right.
You're doing pretty well. So let's expand on that, right? We heard a little bit earlier about the CLEAR program and how they're going to have focus on education. But if people want to get involved and be engaged in this process, how do they do that? How do you get engaged in this process? I see that my rates are going to go up. I see that they want to build a new substation in my neighborhood. How does that work?
Absolutely, we encourage people. When I was chairman of the commission, that was one of my big initiatives, was to get customers more engaged, get people out there. You know, we live stream every meeting. I still say we, even though I'm at the Department of DBPR, but they live stream every single meeting to encourage people access, to give them access, like you would have access at a city council meeting. We improved our technology so that customers can immediately have access to all of the commissioners if they have questions. I encourage it because nobody wants their rates to go up. In fact, during COVID, I was a commissioner, and we reduced, we actually did away with all of the late fees for folks that were struggling to have problems. And we tried to send that message out to our local communities so that they knew that we were trying to provide rate relief.
And this is a follow-up. What is the role of the commission in terms of the relationship with the company itself? And how do you think about, because these companies have shareholders, how do you guys think about all of that stuff?
We try to be impartial and try to be more like a quasi-judicial role. So we do absolutely consider the shareholders, and because ultimately their bond ratings will help reduce debt to the customers, to the end user. So we do balance those, but we do hold them as a third party, you know, at a distance. Of course, we do get to see them at conferences, but we don't have direct contact because it would be considered ex parte communication. So,
and so, how would it work for a municipal? If I'm in Homestead and I'm a little irritated by the utility company, and I called you and you did not call me back fast enough, or whatever that is, how do I engage in that kind of situation?
Of course, that wouldn't happen because I would
you would call me immediately. I know.
But good question. It's a little bit different process. As Julie mentioned, the customers can come to the city council meetings. We have been fortunate that we have reduced rates over the last 12 years. And we are actually, at this point in time, our residential rate is lower than FPL, and FPL is our neighbor. And so our customers are a little quieter than they've been in the past when our rate was higher than FPL. But they have the opportunity to come to the city council meeting. They can do public comments, or they can speak on any given agenda item. If we had an agenda item addressing rates or some type of policy issue for the customers, they have every opportunity to come and speak. They also have access to the mayor. They have access to their council people. They have access to me. They have access to my leadership team. So there are just a variety of venues that they can take advantage of to make their voice be heard. And we're very open to hearing the comments from our constituents, and we will consider them and make changes as appropriate. So they have a very great amount of access to the decision makers.
And so I'm going to play the cynic.
Okay.
Because these are still big organizations, and if I'm just one customer, is my opinion really that valuable? Are you really going to listen to that one person who may have a complaint versus all the other people who may have a different opinion?
Well, I would say yes. I value every single individual, and I know that there are times when I've learned from just one individual. And so yes, of course, every single person is important. And when you start to see a pattern, then that makes it even more apparent that there's some kind of problem that we have to address. If I have one customer who's concerned that their power is fluctuating, we're going to investigate that. If I have 15 customers who tell me their power is fluctuating, we're pretty sure we have a problem, and we're definitely moving in to see what do we need to do to take care of this. But every individual voice is important.
And if I may just add onto that, as an economic regulator, it is critical, actually. We would host meetings in the field. As I said, there was this one water case where a customer brought a container of the water, and it was pretty murky, and pictures and documentation. And that one customer actually catapulted a whole group of people, and it made such a difference. It actually led to the legislature to create a water study committee, which I chaired, and it was 19 people were on that committee, and we made recommendations to the legislature to improve quality of service. Customers, that one person, though, spearheaded that whole thing that led to changes right now that are in law.
Well, and I will share with you that I used to be the lobbyist who would go after people like Julie, and it would be one customer. And so I just want you all to leave with understanding that the power of your voice is real, and it is a very big deal when customers show up at public hearings either at the commission or elsewhere, and make comment. And companies take it incredibly seriously, as well as commissioners. So I know oftentimes people think, it's not a big, I can tell you how many hours I have spent trying to respond because one customer made a complaint, and we have to step it up. So please know that, right, that's like a big difference. And because customers rarely show up. So if it's just one person, you're like, well, it must really be bad if this person came, because customers rarely don't participate, like at most civic processes.
That's true. And again, during COVID, we had different types of proceedings with customers, and we tried to encourage, it was all remote, and we tried to encourage people to come out, and they wouldn't come out. We had major proceedings that impacted their pocketbooks, and we tried to let people, so then we couldn't even make a very balanced decision if you don't have that customer input.
Yeah. So we have a little bit more than a minute left. Final thoughts, what would you want to leave these ladies with as they think about how they're going to engage more with our industry?
I say go to as many meetings and network as much as you can. I think the founder originally said here that you need to be engaged, you need to network, you need to meet with these people, because one person can change your whole life. I cannot reiterate that. That is so true. One person can make all the difference in whether it's personally or professionally. So network, network, network.
Barbara.
Wow, I think Julie said it. Get involved. Get involved in your communities. Get involved when you see a problem. That's a great story about the water. One person can make a difference, and each and every one of you can be that one person. So participate, get involved in things that you're passionate about. I was speaking with Blair, I believe it is, and she was talking about her involvement with some just critical abuse of young people. Get involved in the things that you're passionate about, and if you're really concerned about something, jump in there, attend those meetings.
And that's time. So please join me in thanking Julie and Barbara for their time and their insights. So nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
We are now, one second, because of course my iPad went off, you guys, and I can't remember stuff. So we're moving into a video, but I want to be able to tell you who it is. So we're going to hear from two members of the House Commerce Committee on Energy and Commerce on how federal policies impact water and power in our communities. So we're going to watch these interviews with Congresswoman Debbie Dingell and Congresswoman Catherine McMorris Rodgers.
Congress plays a really critical role in creating federal policies. I'm somebody, you could talk to me about water all the time. I think water is a basic human right. I believe that Congress has got a very critical role to play in creating policies that move innovation and technology forward, to invest in clean energy and water infrastructure, as well as collaborating with other policymakers in the administration to make sure we're addressing problems that we need to address. So on water, I come from the state of Michigan. Flint had children being poisoned by lead in their water. Congress, it took too long, was working with EPA. There were failures at both the federal and the state level to address problems that needed to be done. We passed legislation at the federal level to try to ensure that no community would ever experience what Flint experienced again. Unfortunately, we're still seeing it happen. And so I'm pushing EPA very hard in the Congress would require the elimination of lead in all pipes, water pipes in this country. There was a study that was done in October, or that was released by the Pediatric JAMA, that showed that 50% of all children whose blood was tested in this country have lead in their blood. That's unacceptable. We know what happens to a child when they have lead in their blood. And I think Congress has got a very serious responsibility to address issues like this, to ensure that everybody in this country has access to clean and safe drinking water. But then you talk about energy as well. I mean, these are really complicated issues. Global climate's real. We know it. when you see the wildfires, you see the hurricanes. I had 8 floods in my city, the city in which I live this summer. We've got a responsibility to future generations to reduce carbon emissions, to address methane, so many other issues. And that means, again, Congress has a responsibility to look at policies that are going to protect future generations. I
appreciate the work that you're doing and the focus on energy. And when it comes to the role of Congress, as I see it, Congress has an important role to make sure that energy is affordable, that it is reliable for American families and businesses, and that includes electricity. So whether it's power generation, transmission, distribution, we get involved, whether it's through the Department of Energy or the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, FERC, that does licensing of major projects in the United States of America. But clearly, energy it's so important, and our ability to produce and distribute energy here in the United States is something that we should be protecting and celebrating. Energy is foundational to our national security, our competitiveness. It's foundational to our way of life. So it's important that we do not put up barriers and throw roadblocks around producing reliable energy, whether you think about hydropower electricity or nuclear or natural gas, coal, the kind of energy that keeps the lights on.
Oversight is, I think, one of the most serious responsibilities that Congress has. So you keep people accountable in the jobs. We need to know what they're doing and that they're actually implementing the law. EPA is critical on water, but the Department of Energy would obviously, on the energy front, have responsibility. We want to make sure that they're investing in new technologies. They're overseeing many of the rules and regulations that we've done. But interestingly, I come from the state of Michigan. It's the car state. It's the vehicle state. It's now the state. It put the world on wheels, and now I think of it as the mobility industry. The Department of Transportation is the agency that actually oversees that in EPA. So we need to work with all of the agencies to ensure that the policies we are passing to try to protect in our country, all Americans, is actually being implemented and being done in the right way.
Yes. Well, take the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and I serve as the lead Republican. On the House Energy and Commerce Committee, we are debating policy. We're debating the laws themselves, the bills, and what the policy is going to be, what the law is going to be. But we also have a very important oversight role. And there's a subcommittee on energy and commerce that is the oversight committee. And that is where we, as the legislative branch, have a responsibility to have oversight of the agencies within the executive branch. So when it comes to energy, just last week, for example, we sent a letter to the Energy Secretary, Granholm, asking what is her department doing? We're headed into winter. We see rising energy costs. Gas prices have reached a record high, over $1 just since the beginning of the year. We see disruptions in supply that are threatening brownouts and blackouts as we're heading into winter. And yet, the focus is on the policies around the Green New Deal and the climate summit that's taking place in Glasgow. No. So we sent a letter to the secretary asking her what is she doing to address the energy crisis here at home. That's an example of oversight, because as a committee, as the Republicans, especially on the committee, we're very concerned that the Biden administration has implemented policies that are creating an energy crisis. One of the very first executive orders on day one that President Biden signed was to cancel the Keystone Pipeline. And then it wasn't too long after that, weeks after that, he said okay to a pipeline that Russia's building, Putin's building for Germany. And that didn't make much sense to me. And then in addition, as gas prices are going up in the United States of America because supply is being tapped down here, and and permits the exploration development on federal lands, for example, is being prohibited. The Biden administration has reached out to OPEC and asked them to increase production to address gas prices in the United States. So the committee has an oversight role where we ask the agency questions, we ask the administration questions, we want to be holding them accountable for the decisions that they are making that are impacting the reliability and the affordability of energy here in the United States.